everybody. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the Liftoff 2 stack and how to implement it. It's a really simple stack to use. So when you add it to the page, you notice at the very top, you can set up the type of timer that you want to set up. The default is a clock, and let's go through the clock-based settings that we have. We have different faces. So this is the daily clock, which shows you basically days, hours, minutes, and seconds. And then you can also have an hourly clock, which basically doesn't show you days. The hours just keep ticking up. And we have a 12-hour clock that shows us the actual time. Okay, so this gives us the actual time, but in a flip clock setting. And then that is a 12-hour clock, and their other option is a 24-hour clock. Okay. You also notice that there's a language option. So you can choose the language that will automatically set up the days, hours, basically the labels. So it'll localize those labels for you automatically. We can show or hide the seconds. And lastly, we can configure whether or not we want to count up or count down for this particular timer. Now, while we're on the clocks, let's look at how we can set up our various dates. So one important thing with dates is we want to ensure the proper time zone. So what you do is when you set up Liftoff, you set the time zone that you want it to be. And this is a global setting. So that way, everybody across the entire world has the same exact countdown because it's all going off the time of that particular time zone. By default, we set manually. So we set the exact date and time that we want to track our liftoff countdown or count up to or from. Okay. Now, what are other options? Obviously, if we have total CMS, you can use total CMS, and this needs to put in the CMS ID of the date field within total CMS. Next is we have the ability to do dynamic dates. And this is whether or not you want the next weekday. Okay. And when you choose that, you could choose the next Monday or the next Tuesday or the next Wednesday. So for example, I have a live stream every Wednesday at 11:30. So what I would do is I would set it up exactly like this. I would say next weekday, the next Wednesday is on Wednesday. I'll go over grace period in a minute. And then 11:30 is the time of day on Wednesday. So no matter when I am throughout the week, it's always going to count down to the following Wednesday. Now, I skipped over grace period. What does that mean? Essentially, that means, well, let's say it is Wednesday at 11:30 exactly. I don't necessarily want to start immediately counting to the following Wednesday, even though I'm at Wednesday 11:31. This grace period gives you some time where it will give you a break and not start counting to the following Wednesday. So in this case, not until Wednesday at 12:30, it will start counting to the following Wednesday. Let's say I wanted to give myself 2 hours. I would put 120 minutes in there. And that means at 1:30 on Wednesday, it's going to then start counting to the following Wednesday. So again, this gives us a little bit of grace period so that at immediate at 11:30 and 1 second, it's not going to start counting to the next iteration of the weekday. So let's go to next day of month. Very similar topic. This is just going to be, instead of the next day, it's going to be the actual next day of the month. So this is the first or the second. Do you want to go to the 15th of next month? Okay. And then you can also define the time of day and grace period for that as well. Then we have next day of year, which is counting down to the next day. Maybe that is next year, Christmas next year. Okay, so maybe we want to do that. Maybe we want to count down to Chinese New Year or Christmas or Easter or whatever holiday, right? This allows you to have a countdown timer for that. And what's great about this is you don't need to remember. Once you set it up, it's going to be completely automatic. You don't need to remember to, if we had set up a manual date, you don't need to remember to come back afterwards and set a new date for the future. It's all automatic. Now, styling the clock is super easy. It just simply, you can set up the colors for the back, which is the background of the digits, the actual number colors. Then we have separate colors for the labels, which are down below. and the dots, which separate them. So we have colors for all those. You can also set up whether or not you want the labels at the top or the bottom. And next is the ability to set the sizing for both the labels and the clock digits. Okay, so this gives us some responsive sizing for small, medium, large, and extra large. Now, if you're a Foundation 6 user, this does follow the Foundation 6 framework, although extra large is going to give us 1200 pixels. Okay, so we added an extra little bit for us there. Now, when our clock is complete, okay, we have various actions that we can do. You could potentially just simply hide the clock. And for every action, we also have a delay. So you can configure by default, it's 1.5 seconds. So once this countdown hits 0, it's going to actually activate this particular action. In this case, it's just going to hide the clock. Next, we can hide the clock and reveal content. So when you reveal content, it will actually show you a drop zone, and you can add whatever stack content you want inside of it. And by default, that content will be hidden, and only when the clock reaches 0 would it actually be displayed to the user. Next, you can refresh the page. And then you can also redirect to a URL. Okay, so this gives us, you can give a URL and then it'll redirect to that URL. Now here we have an advanced CSS reference that allows us some advanced styling. I'm going to do a separate video on how we can use Foundation 6 along with these CSS references to then style our Liftoff even farther. So I hope you enjoy Liftoff. It's a super powerful stack. It gives us a lot of flexibility for all kinds of different situations, whether or not we want to count up to from a launch of an event, count down to a big launch that we have. There's a lot of really great things you could do with Liftoff, and I can't wait to see what you do. Please share it on Weaverspace, and we'll see you soon.